Now, the big story of the day. While the global issues took center stage at the G20 Summit, India also held discussions on some of the main issues of the country on the sidelines. Prime Minister Modi and Justin Trudeau engaged in India-Canada pull-aside talks and the issue of Khalistani terror in Canada. But the Canadian Prime Minister refused to condemn instances of K-terror in the reported recent past. Instead, he chose to hide behind the excuse of freedom of expression when he was questioned on his failure to act against Khalistani vandalism in his country.
Two issues you didn't mention. One that has been reported by the Indian media, quoting Indian government sources who say Prime Minister Modi spoke to you about the presence, in his terms, of Sikh Khalistani militants in Canada. And the second is the question of interference in Canada by India, which has been cited by Canada's own intelligence agencies. Did neither of those topics come up?
No, they both came up over the years with Prime Minister Modi. We've had many conversations on both of those issues. Obviously, Canada will always defend freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, freedom of peaceful protest. That's something that's extremely important to us. At the same time as we're always there to prevent violence, to push back against hatred. I think on the issue of the community, it's important to remember that the actions of the few do not represent the entire community or Canada. The flip side of it, we also highlighted the importance of respecting the rule of law, and we did talk about foreign interference.
Well, in contrast, during his visit, the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak came down heavily at the Khalistani sympathizers and said that no form of violence or extremism was acceptable in the country. The Prime Minister Sunak also assured that UK was working with the Indian government to tackle the pro-Khalistan extremism. According to sources, the issue was also raised during the bilateral between the heads of the nations, and UK acknowledged that the Khalistani threat was potent and the sovereignty of the countries was impinged by it. Guests joining us this evening, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow at IPCS, and Lieutenant General G20 Singh, former Western Army Commander. Thank you so much for joining us. An honor to have you on the broadcast with us. But first, I want to get in a word from Rishabh. Rishabh, if we compare the two statements that have been made, UK has condemned the violence stemming out of the Khalistani supporters. But on the other hand, Justin Trudeau, when he was asked about it, covered behind the usual freedom of expression.
Well, definitely, that's what we have been talking for the last 48 hours, that how there are three countries that India is sharing concerns on Khalistan issue. Australia has taken action. UK now has openly condemned and have said that they will not allow anti-India activity, especially the Khalistani extremist activity, on UK soil. And Rishi Sunak was quite vocal about it. But Justin Trudeau again getting in, garb of rule of law and freedom of expression, and not coming out clear whether he will stop the anti-India activities in Canada or not. And we have seen, be it the temple vandalization or be it, rallies or attack on Indian High Commission in Canada, Canada hasn't acted enough. And that is what India's or diplomatic stand is as well, that Canada hasn't acted enough. A Canadian High Commissioner has been summoned by Indian External Affairs Ministry and reprimanded, handed over demarche over these issues. But even now, when Justin Trudeau was asked on the issue of Khalistan sympathizers being taking shelter in Canada, he doesn't have a clear answer, and that showcases that Canada is still in a denial mode.
Absolutely, in denial mode, and the kind of statement that he made as well. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, desecration of temples, vandalism, violent protests that have been reported, can all of these be called freedom of expression as Justin Trudeau has called it?
No, they cannot. And see, this is where the problem comes about. When he's asked about all these questions, he focuses on just those episodes which are freedom of expression based in order to deflect from those which are not freedom of expression based. Beating up Indian diplomats, attacking the embassy, vandalizing temples. These all break the laws of Canada. Remember, there was Jagmeet Singh, his alliance partner Jagmeet Singh's own brother, who was going around, snapping the Indian flag and things like that last year, and no action was taken against him. Now, you can say that, I do believe in the right to burn the flag. I do believe in the right to break the flag. Sure. The problem is it was violently snatched away from a pro-India protester who was then assaulted, which is not within the law, neither Indian nor Canadian. This man is a classic race baiter. He is a religious baiter. He is a lowest common denominator, kind of worst kind of politician humanly possible. And this is what they hide behind. My real issue with this is none of the Indian press actually had the guts to go ask him this direct. This is something where, since he had put himself out at a press conference, the Indian press really should have asked him. But they never do that.
Okay, but, since you mentioned the protests, it's also important to mention that, many of these protests are also under the Kill India banner, the kind of threats that have been given to the Indian diplomats. On the questions that have been posed to him, India has also made its stance extremely clear, and he spoke about it. He said that, there are some people who are indulging in these protests. It's not the entire community, which is true. It's not a representation of the entire community. But the truth is that Canadian soil is being used for this purpose, and that's something that India has objected to previously as well. Lieutenant General, if you can come in here.
Can I just add?
Okay.
Did anybody say that it was the entire community involved in this? He answered a question that nobody asked him.
Yes. Yes, another form of perhaps deflecting from it by saying it's just, he was downplaying it when he said it was just a few sporadic incidents. That's what he seemed to be suggesting when he said it was not the entire community. Lieutenant General, India has made its stance extremely clear, not just now, previously as well. But Justin Trudeau, and this is surely not the first time he has been soft on the pro-Khalistan elements. He has also been part of several protests. In fact, in 2017 as well, he was photographed in front of Khalistan separatist flag, and all of it, coming under, as he says, under freedom of expression. Is it right for a state head to cover behind that when he's clearly been part of this because he is pandering to a certain vote bank back home?
See, basically, you have flagged the issue very correctly. He's got vote bank compulsions. He's got coalition compulsions also. His coalition partner is a known Khalistani activist. Now here, Justin Trudeau, firstly, I must clarify, some channels are very wrongly reporting that he was cold-shouldered and all this. No, Indian government accorded him all the protocols, all the courtesies, and he was treated like any other guest, received for everything, and he's been given his due. So that part, as a good host, India has done. And it was very correct on part of our Prime Minister to insist on a pull aside, even after knowing that this will be the outcome. Because, see, he has to be told, we have issues with 3 countries on this Khalistani thing. And we have managed to bring 2 countries around. UK has come around, Australia has come around. These 2 countries have seen our point of view, and they are willing to work with us, and some measures have been put in place, more are likely soon. But with Canada, we have serious issue, because a lot of that violence resonates backwards. The killing of the Musewala, who's an icon in India, is somewhere threats run to Canada. There are certain gangsters here, Lawrence Bishnoi and all. They are fugitives in Canada. They are sheltering over there. So we have legitimate concerns. To call it interference in their internal affairs is not really right. If you are not going to investigate and bring lawbreakers to, law and justice and deal with them, then we reserve the right to take action also.
Yes.
So that's what we are indeed doing. And our diplomats are threatened, and some of these acts are very sad. They are
and brazen, and they're extremely brazen because they know that there's no action that's going to be taken against them. And like you mentioned, it was not a diplomatic flop show like we saw in 2018 for sure. All the courtesies were extended to him. But just ahead of G20 as well, Canada had said that it had paused talks on the proposed trade treaty with India as well. So that as well came as a bit of a setback. While the talks were going on, it had been resumed, but Canada paused these talks. But talking about Justin Trudeau and his, compulsions. But, Abhijit, if you can just contrast that with what UK has said. Rishi Sunak said it in as many words that we are not going to tolerate any kind of extremism. Canada could have easily done that. Yes, the diaspora in Canada and UK is extremely different. But even while talking about being a part of these Khalistan protests, his predecessor, Stephen, had steered clear from it completely. But it's Justin Trudeau who's taking the lead when it comes to this.
Look, Rishi probably knows how to play the media better, but it doesn't mean he's particularly different from Justin Trudeau. If you remember, the Indian High Commission in London was attacked. Our High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy had to hoist the flag from the balcony after one protester was literally shooed off the balcony. We literally had to withdraw all the protections for the British High Commission here in Delhi. Like if you remember what had happened during Devyani Khobragade's arrest in New York, before Britain agreed to put round-the-clock protection for our High Commission in London. Second, Rishi Sunak did squat when Hindu immigrants were being attacked in Leicester and being painted as a villain. The BBC, in fact, is it's literally I won't even call it the British Broadcasting Corporation. It's the Pakistan Broadcasting Corporation, because everybody there in an editorial position is a Pakistani. So what had happened was that they started acting as the second wing of the folks in Leicester who were attacking Hindus. Rishi Sunak sat through that. He didn't defund the BBC. He didn't demand any action against the BBC. Nothing of that sort. So, just because one appears a bit sweeter to us and the second has a brown skin and a Hindu-sounding name, you might be willing to give Rishi Sunak a free pass. I'm not.
Okay, but you're saying that these strong words mean zilch. Lieutenant General, do you agree with that these are strong words coming in? But, when the Prime Minister of a country makes a statement and, if we say that, we see that against what Trudeau has said, does it embolden these Khalistan supporters?
See, I'll firstly, while agreeing with Abhijit Iyer Mitra on a long-term prognosis of what has been happening in UK, there are some movements forward. There is some hope which is building up, and we can only hope for that. We cannot push them against their own compulsions.
Okay.
They have compulsions
so
also.
I think we can all agree that condemning it may be the first step towards it, but both countries need to do a lot more than that. Canada more than UK, perhaps, as the Canadian Prime Minister has even gone on to say that he is supporting them because this is a freedom of expression. We'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us with your perspectives. We're slipping into a very quick break here. We'll be right back to stay with us.